Before I get into the real meat of this, I want to make a few things clear about my thoughts on Microsoft and Xbox video game endeavors. They have done a lot to push technical boundaries where their systems have more in common with the gaming PC internally than a more conventional console. They've actually heard not without games I've been interested in over the years. I do my best to try and get interested in at least one or several ideas from all of the big players, if not more. They've also done a lot for legacy content in terms of both Game Pass and their marketplace, as well as especially in terms of backwards compatibility across the board. But given how I've been trying to get this done for at minimum a year, and it wasn't my plan to have it out today, but I ultimately concluded that if there's any time to really lean into how how the trajectory has been, it's now. So here is something of a video on why, especially in this console generation, which admittedly started out promising, but lost so much ground to their rivals that not only have they stopped reporting in sales formally for the Xbox Series, but they're planning a significant shift in their business model. After the most recent significant shift is how Xbox and Microsoft have functionally lost the plot. So, let's begin. I've been very open before how I'm not a huge fan of people sending inconsistent messages, especially in the sense of saying one thing and doing the other. And unfortunately, Microsoft's recent management of Xbox has been doing just that. Especially in regards to who a lot of their closures. I'll definitely be doing and getting more into this. My other 2 points, but I think one key flub is their desire for games that bring them in awards and prestige, which they expressed right after they axed a studio that did just that in Tango Gameworks, which I'll be addressing further. Even though their new corporate leadership is not without issues either, I'm going to stay focused for the most part on what is going on with them. Um, Likewise, is this is an Xbox campaign. Thus far, has not had the intended effect they're going for. I mean, they the intent was to convey that it's not just bound to a single console ecosystem anymore, that you can play it on any device can run Game Pass, be it a computer, a tablet, a phone, or smart TV. But instead, the opposite has very much happened and has been utterly roasted across the board by not just their existing fan base, but a lot of people trying to reach out towards Spain. I myself have likened it to the infamous times that at EA he got in trouble for sending out illegal knuckle dusters with the admittedly pretty decent video game based on The Godfather, and the Atari Jaguars' infamous Do the Math campaign, which, with the benefit of hindsight, ended up being a bit like the fuzzy math that Bush used to do. But get ahead of myself here. What is definitely inherently clear with any new game or console or indeed service rolling on a video game, you need to convey what you're selling and how you're selling it in a fashion that not only your target audience can understand, but people outside of it can as well. And in my honest opinion, that is something that the new direction has largely and consistently failed to do. And they'll only get more apparent with my next 2 points, I'm going to be bringing up here. pardon me in this case, but I'm going to be going against the tide saying that I'm actually not as surprised that they've been and abandoning putting their games exclusively on the Xbox ecosystem and slowly but surely putting out more material on PlayStation and Switch families as well. Oh, than I was when, say, Sega was in years past after they phased out the Dreamcast and focused on third-party software publishing and development instead. I mean, I am one of those who took Sonic appearing on Nintendo consoles and PlayStation consoles as a sign that console war had finally given way to console diplomacy, and that instance will not be the first or the last time, to be sure. Or, but in many ways, this has been a very much a mixed situation, and and I'm also going to bring up now the multiple studios whose they've closed down and games have cancelled in the year I've been working on this video. Oh, and had been planning it and drafting it and now producing it. Until I am given reason to believe otherwise, it is clear to me that no studio under the company is safe. I mean, after the critical commercial failure of Redfall, especially a game where Arcane actually, according to reports, not only hoped, but in some of anonymous developers actually begged Microsoft to let them cancel a game or they just retool it into an experience that's closer to what they usually develop. They not only did nothing, but it was a mess which contributed to Arcane Austin being staked through the heart, though I am glad that a lot of other employees that used to work there made it to the main studio in the Uni. Roundhouse Studios, a mobile developer, was doomed, so to speak. Tango Gameworks rushed to their last stance, at least with them, before being bought out by a Krafton of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds fame. Alpha Dog games ended up being spayed and neutered, so to speak. And the most recent and casualty, the Collective, was cleared out and separated. And admittedly, the constant price hikes and trade shenanigans that have been taking part in have not helped matters either. I mean, yeah, I know market instability, quote unquote, and all that, but even by the standards that other people in the market have had to adjust, we gotta draw the line somewhere here. It really was telling that out of all the big manufacturers, they spiked their systems the most. With regards to cancellations, I was not surprised by Everwild or Contraband, given how, apart from the brief announcements and the pre-rendered trailers, we really did not see that much at all. So it's definitely not a bit surprised at all they dropped the X. The Perfect Dark reboot, which I understand is going to be closer in style and tone to the original N64 game than the very divisive Project Zero prequel, is one that I was especially disappointed by. Right? And we definitely didn't have a whole lot to show for it. I mean, it took about 5 years before the game was axed earlier in the year here. So we just have with Joanna Dark one really good FPS title and one rather mediocre one instead. And while some multi-platform releases have been bearing fruit, I mean, with standouts, of course, again being Hi-Fi Rush coming to PlayStation. Hopefully, Krafton can do their who the pick up the off delayed ports for PS4 and Switch family as well. Oh, since it is evocative of the games that came out in the 2000s, and it could basically run on a toaster with its kind of have no frills approach. It is also oh definitely has proven to be mixed in other results. I mean, where not even established titans like Gears and Doom have been completely bulletproof, so to speak. I am glad that they are expanding more on the recent Indiana Jones game, which actually functions like a sixth movie, even getting approval of both Harrison Ford and Spielberg and Lucas, even. And but at the same time, I'm the actual existence of Halo campaign evolved, as well as the fact that it's going to be doing a multi-platform launch, is the least surprising thing I've ever seen. And all the same, that is definitely the biggest example of how they've mismanaged their key assets. I mean, while Bungie finished the fights with their trilogy a long time ago, they had a story to tell with a complete beginning, middle, and end. They told it, and with 343, they had admittedly had a task ahead of them, and even someone who was not as big a fan of the franchise's other titles, such as Star Wars Battlefront or Metroid Prime, even I could not imagine the ride that they went on. I mean, on where it no longer elicits the jolt of excitement that it once did among the public. I mean, where Halo 4 had issues whose admittedly a five Guardians and was not one of those moments, and Halo Infinite ended up being anything but, as they announced that their planned 10-year lifespan would only be ending at 4, and even more so, Slipstream, which is what they were initially planning on using for future installments, had, as part of their reboot as Halo Studios, whose they are now going to be doing Campaign Evolve with Unreal Engine 5 instead, which, not without its own flaws either. It is technical marvel, and it is typically easier to pay for an existing engine and train people to work with that than it is to build a whole new one out of nothing, more or less, in my experience. I mean, all the same, it's hard for me to imagine and Nintendo letting something of that nature happen to Mario, or to an extent Sony having the same thing happen to Kratos the God of War franchise. I mean, it is definitely a tricky business to get right, and even in their ownership of Activision Blizzard has been a mixed bag, and part of me does hope that with the absolute mess that is Call of Duty Black Ops 7, and that maybe, just maybe, they'll ease off of doing annual releases, which has clearly not been working out. Spain for them at all, especially given how Battlefield also stopped doing that a bit ago, and even though they've been having like a tug of war for a long time, there are years where their COD is better at Battlefield and vice versa. This is like the versa, where Battlefield 6 has done significantly better so far in terms of substance sales, He also has active player counts than Black Ops 7 has. And it's still insinuating nothing of like them trying to go back to more grounded version of the multiplayer after years of claiming more or less indirectly saying, guess what we do in Fortnite now. And I'm not even going to dignify the AI experiments with response, nor the other rather dubious ventures and things I've done with those. Might as well wrap this up for the next segment. Though, oh, I may not agree with every single business or creative decision that Sony or Nintendo have made over the years, I can at least understand from a basic level why they make them. Typically, hey, that is definitely not something I can say about the current state of Xbox or Microsoft at all, man. While I have a solid idea of what to expect from um where the Switch family goes from here, as well as the talk of the next iterations of PlayStation, and especially as PS5 has been kept pace with the PS4, and according to some metrics, actually leapfrogging it. Having sold some amount of units at the same point, about 85 million worldwide to date. It's I cannot say that same thing about Microsoft or Xbox at all. They are currently claiming that their next iteration of the Xbox is going to have more in common with a gaming PC, especially not just internally but also externally, and even their ROG ally with the Xbox branding has actually managed to sell moderately well despite its $1,000 list price, which is basically enough to buy at least two Switch 2s for the going rates. Eight. But at the same time, given how much goodwill they've burned with handling their software, there is a sizable chunk of people, such as myself, who are not convinced that they'll stick with it. It's simple. If you disappoint your audience enough times with underperforming in software and and hardware, they're more likely to take the business elsewhere. Here, as someone who didn't want to believe at the time, I was ultimately forced to acknowledge that Sega's habit of launching and then sunsetting hardware in years past caused people to take their business elsewhere, and that is admittedly a concern I and others have going forward. Right? I mean, ironically, the company that once offered to buy Sega may end up just like them if the next console does not perform well, or if it even ends up releasing at all. Given the competition they're facing, Steam is going to be getting back in the console market, my understanding. With a new Steam box, which may or may not have the long awaited and desired Half Life 3, they have enough uphill battle on their hands with Microsoft and their next Xbox. That said, it's not impossible to come back from a rough spot, as this company, 20 years after the launch of Xbox 360, 20 years back, after the Revving a Death debacle, they turned that system around after all. I have nothing more to add about that, as nearly everyone else, including Microsoft themselves, covered it extensively. Prove me wrong, fellas. I'll see everyone again soon. Take care. Okay. Before I really get started on this, I want to make a few things clear about my thoughts on Microsoft and the Xbox brand. They have done a lot, admittedly, in years past to push technical boundaries, with their hardware having much more in common internally with a gaming PC than a console in the traditional sense.